Okay, this video is going to cover a couple of different topics to kind of finalize our BIM model, and then the next three videos are really going to focus on adding in the small details needed for a set of construction documents. So in this video, we are going to cover adding in our staircase within our stairwell, going from level 1 to level 2, and then from level 2 to level 3. We're also then going to add in a ceiling within both of the bathrooms on level 1 and 2, as well as then a little drop ceiling underneath the lofted area of level 2. Then we are going to add in some components. We're not going to add in a whole lot. We're just going to put in a sink and a toilet within both bathrooms. We are going to create our room tags, and then we are going to create 2 additional section views to kind of start finalizing everything and join some of the geometry in there. I'm going to start with the stairs because I feel like the stairs, in my opinion, are going to be the hardest of all of them to do. So I always like to try to get the hard work out of the way first to make things a little bit smoother sailing. So we are going to use the stair tool to create a staircase in the architecture tab. And before I start creating my stair, what I'm going to do to just make my time a little bit easier is I am going to say that I want to edit this stairs type, and I'm going to make the width of each run 4 feet, just because I know that's what we're going to use in our final result. If I change it beforehand, they'll just automatically be 4 feet, but even if I don't change that, I could easily fix it. We're going to make like a switchback stair set, so we're going to go up halfway, have a landing here, and then go up the other half. We can see that it's going to create 28 steps, so I want to go up 14 and then switch myself over to the other side. I'm just going to start somewhere and move it into place afterwards. So I'm going to just click to start my steps. I'm going to go up until it says right over there. Once I move my cursor, it's going to move, but that I have 14 steps remaining. I'm 14 created, 14 remaining. And then I'm going to click. I'm going to move myself up so that I'm sitting in line with it. And then I'm going to make my other 14 steps and then click to finish it. I'm not done yet because I still need to kind of move my stuff around a little bit. So I'm going to highlight my whole staircase and just kind of drag it into place a little bit over here. Then I want a little bit more of a gap than what I currently have. So I'm going to move this stairs up a bit. I'm going to click on this stair and move it down a bit. Just trying to keep it as centered as I can. Realistically, what I could also maybe do is just make that like a 1 foot and click on this stair and change this one to a 1 foot just to keep it nice and even though is that going to be even? It's even enough for me at least. I'm not going to go for perfection necessarily here with this staircase. And now I can click the green check and I have made my stairs. One thing Revit does graphically that I don't like with the stairs is it adds in a lot of these hidden lines related to things like how this here is our nose and then that's where the actual like riser is, because of the fact that it's sticking out a little bit more. So I try to do a little bit of hiding of those hidden lines. I'm going to use the visibility and graphics to change that. So I'm going to go into VG as the keyboard shortcut. I could also click right here on my properties bar, and I'm going to go down to my stairs. So I'm just going to type S to get down there a little bit faster. And within my stairs, I don't want to completely turn visibility off for stairs, but I do just want to open up that little plus sign and see if we turn off like the above riser and hit apply, that just cleans that up a little bit. I usually also get rid of, I believe that above supports, and I don't think I get rid of that. We'll see. If I hit apply, it doesn't really seem like much changed within it. And then I also get rid of the regular riser lines on here as well. So if I uncheck that riser lines and we hit apply, we can just see that that's a little bit easier to look at and like understand the building and the drawing of the staircase. If we go look at it 3D and I just use my section box to kind of pull into the stairwell here. Well, that's my landing. Okay, so let me just pull a little bit more so we can see what the ultimate issue is. We face this problem with our residential staircase too, in that the floor is in our stair. So we need to edit this floor boundary so that way we don't have it going into the stairs. Two ways we could go about doing that. One would be that while I'm in this 3D view and I have the ability to click on this floor, I can click on it and then choose Edit Boundary and then go into my Level 2 plan to adjust that boundary. So that's one way to kind of be able to get it and click on it a little easier. I'm just going to cancel this to show the other way I can select the floor, which would be to highlight this way. So if I click out in the abyss and I drag down towards the left, right now I've selected this wall and the floor, and I'm just going to filter out of my selection the wall, and now I just only have the floor and I can edit its boundary. I'm just going to create like a little gap around here. So I'm going to select this line up at the top and move that grip over. It showed me, it was highlighting when it was lined up with there. I guess it is. And then I'm going to draw in a new boundary line from that endpoint down to this grid line. I'm going to overshoot the stairs because it's going to be kind of hard for me to line that up perfect. So I'm going to overshoot the stairs straight back up until I'm in line with where this is going to meet, and then click again. Instead of trying to line that perfectly up and probably failing, what I'm instead going to do is use the Align tool, which again is keyboard shortcut AL, and I'm going to click on that stair and click on that boundary just to bring it right up to it. Then when I'm all set, I can hit escape a bunch of times and then hit the green check mark to finish up my stairs. So what I've done, if I go into my 3D view, is I've just gotten rid of the stair or the floor that was on top of that stairs, and I'm just using this part of the floor as like a secondary landing. Then I need to put another stair up from level 2 to level 3. While I'm in level 2, you'll notice that those hidden lines and everything came back. That's just because, little bit unfortunately, whenever we change visibility and graphics, it just changes in that one singular view. So I need to go back into VG, and I'm going to go down to stairs. Again, if I just type S, I get down there a little bit faster since everything's in alphabetical order. And I'm going to get rid of the above pieces, and I'm also going to get rid of the riser lines in the drawing as well. We can just see that this staircase is a little bit easier to kind of look at. Now I'm going to make another staircase that goes from where level 2 ends, which would be, so I'm going to go from here up from level 2 to level 3. So I'm going to go into the stair tool again. Notice how our number of steps is different, and that's just because the height we're going from level 2 to level 3 is also different. I'm going to start my stair, though, just straight in line with where this one also was. And I'm going to go up to that same point of where the landing was. And then I'm going to go up from this end point until I have no more steps left. And then I just kind of end here. This way I have at least the same size stairs and everything from going from level 2 to level 3. I'm going to have to make a little bit of a bigger landing here, but that's okay. And then I'm going to hit my green check to make my staircase, and now I have stairs going from level 2 to level 3. If I look at it three-dimensionally, I have that same issue again of my floor being stuck in there. So I'm going to go to my level 3 plan. I can either select the floor from that 3D view, or I can do my click and drag method and then use the filter to get rid of the walls and then edit this boundary. And so what I'm going to do for this one is I want to just have a boundary just with an opening here. And so I'm gonna actually kind of really jank this up a bit to just make my little L-shaped piece over here. So I'm going to move this boundary line all the way over to this utility room as kind of just its own floor. And then I'm going to draw in a new floor. So I'm going to use the line tool to go from here up over. So I do want to make sure I'm doing it to that core boundary, which is a little hard to do sometimes. Down to, I had it on that grid. There we go. To that grid. Back over this way. I'm going to overshoot these two. And I didn't even line those two up. Way to go, me. But I can kind of even fix this from what janky thing I have. So I'm going to hit escape a bunch of times. I'm going to use the align tool, which again is keyboard shortcut AL or this button here, to say I want this and this to sit in line with each other. I want the edge of my stair support and this to sit in line. I want the edge of this step and this to sit in line. We can also add a railing in after the fact too to make this a little bit safer. And then I'm going to hit escape about 13, 14 times and just drag that so this way this is all at one endpoint. I can have these two separate pieces, but it does need to be just a closed boundary when you draw on a floor. I'm going to say finish. And if I look at it 3D now, I have this little pathway or walkway. And just for a little precaution, in level 3, I'm going to add in a railing. Just sitting in line. Here up to my wall. Let's see, how far off I'm going to think is this, because then I just want to make this one also just to match up a little bit. That way, there we go. Oh no, let's edit its path again. I guess I was doing the path based on the outside. Didn't know. Pick lines, what if I just do this? Just pick those two, drag that endpoint in, and then flip it. No, because I want it to sit nice in line with there. There we go. I'm just going to move this one over. This one I don't care too much about sitting in line. This one I really wanted to just sit nice and flush with it. That way I just have a little safety railing up here going up to the roof. That was kind of a bad idea to have it the original way. There is a stair tool to make multiple levels a little bit easier. So if I go into any elevation view, it's going to be a little hard to select the stairs, but I'll put myself in wireframe to do it. There is this tool here called multi-level stairs. The reason why multi-level stairs wouldn't work for us is because these levels are different sizes. So if we did multi-level, if I just make a copy of these stairs, so I'm going to use the copy tool over and just make stairs over here. If I selected these stairs and said I wanted to make multiple stories and connect it to level 3, what we're going to see happen, and let's see if it makes me into a liar, is that it didn't start, if we look at it straight from the side, like it's not really ending it or putting it nice and flat on that landing. So we would have had to make a little bit more of this landing. It's not finishing the way we want because of the difference that these are different height. Not the end of the world. We could have easily extended that landing out, but it's just something that's going to happen if you do multi-level steps with levels that are different sizes. But if I have a building that's, 14 stories tall, every level's the same, I can easily just use that to make a set of switchback stairs in some type of stairwell. And I'm just going to delete those because I don't need them anymore. So we've made our steps. We've edited our floors for our steps. Now would be a good time. We can add in our ceilings. So we're going to put a ceiling in on level 1, sitting underneath this loft area, and we're also going to put ceilings in within the bathrooms. And so let me just double check my measurement. So when we go into our level 1 floor plan, we are going to use kind of 2 different ways to make a ceiling. One is we're going to just use the automatic ceiling to put one into each of these bathrooms. So I'll go to ceiling. We'll leave this offset height at 8 foot, and we're just going to use this automatic ceiling to just easily click. As a warning, it's telling us that none of them are visible in this floor plan view, but it is telling us that we did in fact put a ceiling in this bathroom. I'll go to level 2. And I'm going to also use the ceiling tool and use the automatic sketch to just quickly put a ceiling here in this bathroom. And if we go look at it 3-dimensionally, and I move my section box over so we can see into the bathrooms, we now have a ceiling sitting at an 8-foot height in both of those bathrooms. For this ceiling above the lofted area, it is going to be a little bit different, because we do not have necessarily a place to just click on or select, since our level 1 area is just this open with this area to, or doesn't have that wall separating it from the level 2 loft area. So if I go into my ceiling plans and I go into my level 1 ceiling plan, I can actually see that wall, and maybe then we can actually select the automatic ceiling. That'd be pretty cool. I didn't think about that. Let's see. I can't still do an automatic ceiling even here, but at least I can see the wall that I want to reference to, and that's at least kind of good enough. So instead of using automatic, I'm going to use the sketch a ceiling tool, and I'm going to use pick lines to just select that one as my nice reference. And then I'm going to sketch in the other ones of just around my grid. That didn't go to my grid. So I hit escape and I just clicked on that. Where my grid meets. Where my grid meets. And another one from that endpoint down. It did, on this case, it did just bring those to meet at that corner, which is wonderful. But on this one, it did not. So what I'm going to do is use the trim and extend to corner to bring these two together. And then I want a height offset for this one of 12 foot 4 inches. So it's going to be just a little bit higher up. When I click OK, in this view, I can see ceiling tiles because I'm in a ceiling plan. When I'm in a floor plan, I obviously can't, but it would have been hard to sketch that in the floor plan. And then if I go into my 3D view, we can see that we now do have a ceiling there. In fact, though, I am going to click on this and edit its boundary and go back into my, see if I can look at it from my framing, level 2 framing. It's still not visible there, and just my regular level 2. Just because I do want to actually bring it in a little bit. So I just use my arrow keys to nudge it in. So that way it's just not sticking out awkwardly here. On there is basically why I wanted to do that. And so now I have my ceilings installed. We're not going to put ceilings within the stairwell. Because we have stairs going up, and then once we get to level 3, there's really no need for a ceiling because this is just to get up onto that utility piece. And we are just going to leave these exposed within our views or from our level 2, so we don't have a ceiling in level 2 either. Next, we'll add in some components for our bathroom, so just something that shows where the toilet and where the sink sits, or that a toilet and sink can fit in here, and that circle that's being shown in the drawings. This is a 5-foot in diameter circle. It's meant to show the turning radius for a wheelchair to kind of just prove that this building here is ADA accessible, but we'll go over that within the annotation videos. So I'm going to use components to place a component into my drawing. I don't believe I loaded in components for toilets and sinks, but that's okay because we can easily go after that. And then I'm going to load a family. I'm going to go into plumbing. So I'm going to double click on plumbing. I'm going to double click on architectural. I'm going to double click on fixtures. And I want to load in a water closet and I want to load in a sink. My suggestion for drawings like this is to actually load in these 2D, because the issue with these sinks is these are all sinks that require a cabinet. So then we've got to load in casework, we've got to load in a countertop, we've got to place the sinkhole. Just using this sink single will get the point across the sinks there, and then we don't have to worry about loading in all those other things. And we're not going to do a rendering in this bathroom, so it's going to be okay. And I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to place it in my drawing. Just going to kind of eyeball it into place. Why is it showing up as just a rectangle and not the actual visual? That I don't know. We'll see in a second if I can figure out why it's doing just that weird rectangle, because that's kind of a bummer, and I didn't do that last time. Edit type. Is it because it's sitting at 0, 0? What if I lift it up 2 feet in the air? No. Oh, I'll figure that out in just a moment. We'll also add in our 2D toilet. So I'm going to go component, load family. I'm going to go back in my look in folder to my plumbing fixtures, and I'm going to go into water closet, and I'm going to use commercial toilet 2D. Okay. And I'm going to load that in as well. And let's see if this is only going to show up. Now, see, this one shows the line work. Why doesn't my sink? Huh. Interesting. Let me hit escape a bunch of times. Let me figure out why. I'm going to pause while I figure out why. Okay, unfortunately, I did a little Googling, I did a little searching. No one can offer me much help other than telling me to double click inside this sink, draw over every single line in here, and then load it back into my project, because it all is set to be visible in here. So I'm not sure why all of these lines are set as must not. No, they're all set as visible. If I do this, load into project and close. Yeah, that literally changed nothing, so I'm not going to get too hung up about it. It's kind of a bummer because it worked last summer, but okay. And I'm just going to put in another sink then on level 2. I'll go into my level 2 plan. I'm going to put in my toilet and sink. So that's back in the architecture tab. I can go into component. I don't have to reload them in because they're already going to be loaded in from here. So I can just click to place my toilet, click to place my weird sink that won't show up, though I bet it shows up in this one. Nope, at least then it's consistent with not showing up. That's so weird and such a bummer. I'll figure it out one day. If we wanted to as well keep everything like nice and even, I could measure out saying that this one's going to be placed 3'6", and this one is also then 3'6" from here. I could go into my level 1, and I can adjust just these witnesses at least, so that way my sink and toilet in both of these in level 1 and level 2 are in the exact same spot. I could also just kind of eyeball them to place, which is what I did the first time around. But that's really all we're going to need for components when it comes into this building. Not all too much. Next, we're going to place our room tags in our building. So the room tags that we have are just really for our leasable space on level 1, as well as our leasable space for level 2. So I'm going to go into my level 1 plan, and I just want to place in a room tag or to tag my room. The first thing before we can place a room tag with this button is we have to have a room actually present. So I'm going to create a room first of this space, and I can actually have it where I'm tagging it on placement. And I'm just going to place this kind of a little bit down here, try to center it as best as I can, and then I can hit escape to end it. I can rename it into lease space, and then I can also adjust the numbering system, especially if you're going to be tagging like room numbers. It makes sense to adjust this beforehand. Like if I was doing a school building and I had room 101, 102, I wouldn't want to go and change this for 100 different rooms. So I can actually change that number to say like 101 beforehand, and then the next one I place would be 102, 103. Since we only have to tag 2 spaces, it's not going to be the end of the world in here. What we can also do with room tags that can be pretty useful is we can adjust what the tag says. So I can go here into edit type, and I can also have it show like the square footage of this area. So that way I can at least just have that information present. But I really don't need it in this case. Another thing I can do is if I just click on the room itself, so I have to kind of hover over here to see one of those X's rather than click on the tag. It'll tell me my square footage, it tells me my perimeter, so it gives me a couple of pieces of information within here, and I can also change those numbers and things within here. On level 2, if we go to just place a room on level 2, actually, that's kind of cool. Last time it didn't recognize that knee wall separated this room. So we actually don't need to place a room separator, but what we could do is, let's say I wanted to make this like kitchen and this living room, and it's an open area space. I could use this room separator tool. Sure, I'll save my work. To separate this into 2 different spots, and then I can hit escape a bunch of times, and I could tag this is one room, this is another room, without having to actually put any walls or barriers in there. I'm just going to delete that room separator though, because we don't need it. I'm going to go back into the room. I'm going to place a tag, and we can see that it's now following my new numbering system, but I actually want to call this number 201, and then I'm going to also call this lease space. They can have the same names, and that can even help when you're creating like a color map too. If you were going to do a color map, all of the bathrooms can be named the exact same, and then they'll show up at the same color on your color legend for your room spaces. The last thing then that we're going to do in this video is we are going to set up some new section cuts. So if we look at the section cuts that we've been provided, if I look at this one here, I can get into this section cut by either scrolling down in my list, and I have section 1 and 2, or I can double click on that section head. This section cut is nice and it's helpful, but we can't see any of those structural components that are sitting underneath here. And the same thing then, we can see at least these structural components here for these trusses. If we go into section 2, we actually are running into 2 different problems. One of them is that we can't see the stairwell at all, and then we need to make an additional section where we have the stairwell cut open. If we look at the drawings, and I just zoom out to make scrolling a little easier, our section cut does have that stairwell visible. There's kind of 2 ways we can fix that issue. One is if we go into any one of our floor plans and we click on this section marker, it's because of where this clipping line is. So if we drag that line just really far out and I go back into my section 2 view, I now can in fact see that stairwell. but I can't see in it because the cut line itself is not in it. Another way I could easily fix this problem is without dragging that line. While I'm in the section properties, I can scroll down and I can change that far clipping. So if I just say that I want no clip at all, then it'll show the extent of all of the drawing space in total. But we are going to place 2 additional section cuts. We're going to make, I'll scroll back up to the floor plans, one here that's cutting through the stairwell, and another one here that's going to be cutting underneath that loft space to show us some of those structural pieces. So I'm going to go into one of my floor plans. Realistically, you can technically place these kind of in any view, but I always like doing them in a floor plan. And I'm going to use the shortcut for section, which is up here. Where do I want it to start? And where do I want it to end? And I'm just kind of eyeballing it into place. I put it here so that this way it was cutting through this window. I'm just going to use my arrow key to nudge the line down a little bit. And then also another good thing to do would be to move this section head so I get that dotted line that these two are in line with each other, just to kind of have a little bit more organization in the drawing. We'll see down here that we now have a section 3, and this is now a cut that's showing us those structural components of the building itself. I'll go back into my level 1 floor plan, and I'm going to place another one here going through the stairwell. We see in the example that it's kind of right in line with where that curtain wall is, so that's where I'm kind of going to sort of eyeball it into place. It doesn't have to be exactly on that. I'll do a section cut. This time I'm going to intentionally do it the wrong way. So I'm going to place it from down here up. And now my section cut is facing the wrong way. Even if I do nudge it like into place this way, so it's cutting through that stairwell, when I go look at section 4, it's not actually giving me information about the stairwell. I'm just looking at that railing on the other side. So I'm going to go back into my level 1 floor plan to show you that it's an easy fix. I can use this to just flip which way it's facing. And now when I go look at section 4, I can also double click on that head to show it. I can see that actual staircase and how it's going up. And then let me go back into my level 1 floor plan. The other issue though is that like this head is down here. I can use this cycle to now cycle it to that tail, and on this end cycle this to the head. And again, drag these up so that they're just kind of organized a little bit nicer. And then I've got my new section views. Before we kind of start finalizing them, it's going to make sense to just rename them, because otherwise section 1, 2, 3, and 4 is going to start to get a little confusing. So I'm going to scroll down to my sections. We have our east-west. We have east-west section number 2 and east-west section number 1. So I'm going to go into section 1, and then I'm going to right-click, rename. This is, I want to put it as the exact name, section east-west 1. Right-click, rename. So this was section north-south 1, so I'm going to right-click, rename, which means our section 3 is going to be east-west 2, and section 4 is going to be rename north-south 2. Couple of other things we're going to do to clean these up is things like adjust our section heads in these views to be lined up. So I'm going to click on this one, drag it up to be lined up, drag this one also until I get that dashed line to be lined up. I'm going to adjust my drawing detail. So at the moment we have a coarse level of detail. I'm going to bump that up to medium at least, because that's going to bring in so much more information. I'm going to hide my crop region so I don't have to see it. Or you know what? Actually, I'm going to keep it on because later on we might want to drag these in. And then I'm going to use the join tool to kind of just make all of these connections within my building happen a lot more seamlessly. So I'm going to click on really anything, any one of them at all, and then I'm going to use join geometry to bring this wall and this ceiling together, and see how it just kind of refines that line weight, this wall and this roof piece together, this wall and this wall together. So I'm just going around and just clicking on each time I have a connection between one piece and another, and I'm just joining those together. Once something has been joined once, it's not going to allow you to click on it. Some of them were joined already from when we first made like the floor, or rather this roof. It asked if we wanted to join the geometry. I'll bring this floor and the foundation and the footing, foundation, footing, footing, floor, floor to this wall to ceiling, floor to this wall to footing. So I'm just joining it all to just be kind of that one seamless, heavy line. Going around my building. And then I'm going to do the same thing in my next one. So I'm going to go into my north-south one here. And I'm just going to do some join geometry real quick. So I'll click, join, to just clean up that line work. Seems like some of it has already been joined. And it could be that this is a 2024 update where everything gets, if I join it in one view, it just joins it in all, which would be wonderful. This one is already set to a medium level detail, so I don't need to update that. I do need to adjust these, so I'll hit escape. And I'm going to bring that one up. And this one, I'll go into my east-west. And then I'll use join geometry. This wall to the foundation, foundation to the floor, foundation to the footing. Floor to wall, wall to foundation, foundation to floor, foundation to footing. Just to make it all just that one big outline. Wall to ceiling. Looks like that floor already got connected. Fantastic. Wall to ceiling. And then I'm going to clean up my 2 section cuts here. So I'm going to first set my detail level to medium to just beef up that wall detail. And then I'll hit escape a few times. And I'll drag this one up. And this one down. And then I'll go into my east-west one, which looks like, so it looks like all of those joins were just taken over from my other drawing, which is fantastic that I have to put in less work. I'm not going to complain about that. I'll bring that one up. I'll bring that one up as well. So yeah, it looks like all of my joins just got carried over, which is pretty sweet because that's less work for me. This one's already set to a detail level of medium. And so now our drawings are looking a little bit closer to what these sections are actually supposed to be, which actually I might need to change this clipping because I can't see those windows or the roof back here. So I'm not done. So we're just going to go back into our level 1 floor plan. And the same way we had to adjust that clipping box for this guy, we also need to adjust the clipping box for this one. So I'm just going to drag it really far out. And then when I go into my east-west one, there we go. Now I can see all those. I'm also going to hide some of these levels. So I'm going to right-click on level 4, and I'm going to say hide in view element. I'm going to right-click on level 5, hide in view element. I'm going to go into my east-west. Do the same thing. This only does it in this one particular view. I don't want to hide categories because I do want my levels here to be showing up. And if I want to or need to adjust these heads of where they're sitting, I can click on this to break that off. So I can, if it will let me, adjust not that. Usually whenever I don't want to break it, there we go. It won't let me click on it. So that way these just aren't stacked on top of each other like that. Let's also, oh, I already had it in that one. I'm going to hide level 4, hide level 5, and then I'll go into my north-south 2 and hide my element, hide my element. And then I'm going to just click on that break so that way I can bring that level 2 label down a little bit, because otherwise it's just really on top of there and it's just not good to look at. And so at this point, my building, the whole BIM model, I'll go back into my 3D view, is complete for my leasable space. So in the next video, we're going to cover how to add in all of those annotations and notes, finish up all of our dimensions. In the video after that, we're going to do our wall section, which is adding in a lot of those tiny, tiny details. And then in the final video, we'll go over how to add everything to paper space and sheets.